Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about something we often overlook. Comfort. It sounds so gentle, so safe. But what if I told you that comfort, when clung to for too long, becomes the very thing that holds us back? We think we're protecting ourselves, but in reality, we're slowly disconnecting from growth, purpose, and possibility. In this conversation, we will explore how comfort zones become invisible cages, how fear disguises itself as peace, and why choosing discomfort is sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself. This is not just about change, it's about choosing to truly live, not merely exist. There is a certain charm to comfort. It feels like peace, it feels like home. It's warm, it's familiar, and it whispers, "Stay here, you're safe." And so, we stay. We build routines around it. We decorate our fears with excuses. We convince ourselves that stillness is strength, that predictability is power. But here's the truth we don't want to face. Comfort is not always kindness. Sometimes it's a cage. Comfort zones are not walls built of bricks or stone. They are built from fear, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of pain. And the most dangerous part? These walls are invisible. You don't even realize you're trapped. Because you can still breathe, you can still smile, go about your day, and even look successful to the world. But deep down, there's a quiet ache. A feeling that something inside you is not growing. Something is stuck, waiting to be set free. Think of a bird born in a cage. It grows up seeing the bars but never questions them because that's all it knows. Even if the cage door is left open, the bird doesn't fly because the comfort of the cage feels safer than the uncertainty of the sky. This is what comfort does to us. It teaches us to play small. It makes us forget that we were meant to soar. And while we sit in that soft, familiar space, time is moving, the world is moving, and worst of all, your potential is waiting. We all dream, but dreams don't grow in comfort. They grow in struggle, in risk, in uncertainty. They grow when we decide to leave the cozy bed and step into the cold morning air. When we choose the discomfort of change over the illusion of safety. Ask yourself, when was the last time you did something for the first time? When was the last time your heart raced, not from fear, but from boldness? If you can't remember, maybe you've made a home in a prison, and it's not your fault. The world glorifies ease. We're told to find balance, to avoid stress, to keep things comfortable. But real life, the kind that wakes up your soul, doesn't come wrapped in comfort. It comes wrapped in courage, and courage, my friend, often looks like being scared and doing it anyway. So look around. Is your comfort zone really protecting you? Or is it protecting itself from the powerful, unstoppable force that you truly are? There is nothing natural about staying the same. The seasons don't stay still. The tides don't pause. A seed doesn't remain buried in the soil. It breaks open in darkness, reaches upward, and becomes a tree. So why do we believe that we are supposed to remain the same? The truth is, you were never meant to be static. You were created to evolve, to stretch, to stumble, and to rise again. But somewhere along the way, we confuse stillness with safety. We forget that growth often begins in the most uncomfortable, messy places. Have you ever watched a child learning how to walk? They fall again and again, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing. But what's most important is they always try again. They don't judge themselves. They don't say, maybe walking isn't for me. They get up because something deep inside knows you're meant to move forward. That instinct to rise, to grow, to evolve is still in you. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's just been buried under the noise of self-doubt and fear. The world might have told you to settle down, to stay practical, to stop dreaming, but those were lies disguised as advice. Because settling is not peace, it's surrender. And surrendering your growth for the sake of comfort is the slowest form of self-abandonment. Your soul wasn't born to live on repeat. You weren't meant to just wake up, go to work, pay bills, and repeat until your body grows tired. You are not a machine. You are a miracle. And miracles are meant to be witnessed in motion. Some people spend their whole lives sitting by the shore, afraid of the waves. But growth doesn't happen by watching from a distance. You have to step in. You have to let the waves crash into you and learn to swim, not despite the current, but because of it. Yes, rising is painful. Yes, moving forward often means leaving behind people, places, and versions of yourself you once loved. But you cannot carry your old self into your new life. You must be willing to shed, to evolve, not because you are broken, but because you are becoming. So many of us are waiting to feel ready, but you were never supposed to feel ready. You were just supposed to begin. The courage comes after the leap, not before. You grow while you're moving, not before you start. So wherever you are right now, ask yourself, am I staying still because I'm truly at peace? Or am I standing still because I'm afraid of who I might become if I start moving? Because the moment you choose to rise, even if you're trembling, you begin to return to the person you were always meant to be. Pain is not always a punishment. Sometimes it's a teacher, sometimes it's a doorway, and sometimes it is rebirth in disguise. We've been conditioned to believe that pain is something to escape from, that if something hurts, it must be wrong. But that's not always true, because some of the most painful moments of your life are also the ones that quietly sculpt you into who you are meant to become. Think about the butterfly. Before it ever touches the sky, it breaks into fights, alone, inside a cocoon, dissolving into something completely unrecognizable. It's messy, it's silent, it's hard, but through that destruction, something miraculous is born. That's what growth looks like. It doesn't come with soft music or gentle mornings. It often arrives in the form of heartbreak, failure, uncertainty, moments where everything seems to be falling apart. But maybe things are not falling apart, maybe they are just falling into place. By first breaking everything that no longer serves you, we are so quick to label discomfort as a bad thing. But growth is supposed to stretch you. It's supposed to challenge you, unsettle you, even scare you. Because anything that truly transforms you will first confront you. Have you ever looked back at a time in your life that almost broke you, and now you realize it built something stronger within you? That's the magic of growth. It never feels like magic while you're in it. It feels like chaos, but one day you wake up and realize you've become someone your past self would be proud of. When we resist pain, we resist our own evolution. We delay our breakthroughs. But when we learn to sit with it, when we stop running from the discomfort and start listening to what it's trying to teach us, we begin to grow. Growth says you don't need to have it all figured out right now. You don't need to be perfect to begin. You just need to stop pretending you're okay where you are, if where you are is hurting you. Sometimes life will remove the things you thought you couldn't live without, not to punish you, but to make space for what you truly deserve. Sometimes it will pull the ground from under your feet so that you finally learn how to fly. Yes, it's painful. Yes, it's uncomfortable. But no, it's not the end. It's the middle, the messy, raw, sacred middle where your real self begins to emerge. If you're in that space right now, where things don't make sense, where everything hurts, maybe this isn't your breakdown. Maybe it's your breakthrough. Maybe you're just being reborn. There is a version of you that already exists, stronger, braver, wiser. They are not far away. They live just beyond the line you're afraid to cross. And every single day, that version of you is whispering, please, don't give up on me. We all have dreams, but most of us trade those dreams for comfort, not because we don't want them, but because we don't want the discomfort that comes with chasing them. We tell ourselves, I'll start tomorrow. maybe next year, when I'm more ready. But here's the hard truth. Tomorrow doesn't owe you anything. The life you dream of won't come gift-wrapped in ease. It will ask you to be uncomfortable, to make sacrifices, to wake up earlier, to risk being misunderstood, to fail and still try again. We think our future will magically improve while we stay the same. But how can it? Your future self, the one living in joy, in purpose, in power, is not the product of luck. They are the product of discipline, grit, and most of all, discomfort, willingly chosen. Can you imagine looking in the mirror 5 years from now and realizing, I played it safe, I avoided pain and chose comfort, and now I'm standing in the same place? That kind of regret, it doesn't scream, it whispers. It shows up in small sighs, in quiet moments, when you wonder, what if I had tried? But there's another possibility. Imagine waking up one day and realizing, I did it. I chose the hard path. I stayed consistent. I got uncomfortable on purpose. And now your future self smiles, not because it was easy, but because it was worth it. This journey you're afraid to start, it's already calling you. It's already written for you. But the only way to reach it is by walking through discomfort, step by uncertain step. The workouts that exhaust you, the rejections that sting, the early mornings, the lonely nights, the long hours, they are not punishment. They are the price of your transformation. They are the currency of becoming who you were meant to be. You won't always be motivated, but you can always choose to be committed. Even on the days when you don't feel strong enough, choose to show up anyway. Because the future you, the one you secretly dream about at night, is counting on the present you to be brave enough to take the first step. We often say, I'm fine, with a smile that hides exhaustion. We sit in rooms full of people but feel like we're disappearing inside. We stop speaking, stop trying, stop feeling, and we call it peace. But let me gently ask you, is it really peace, or is it fear wearing the mask of calm? So many of us confuse stillness with stability. We tell ourselves that because nothing is falling apart, everything must be okay. But deep down, we know when something inside us is going silent, not out of serenity, but out of survival. You see, fear is clever. It doesn't always show up as panic or loud anxiety. Sometimes it arrives quietly. It teaches you to shrink, to stay silent when your heart wants to scream, to stay in that job, that relationship, that place in life that you've outgrown, because at least it's comfortable. But here's what I've learned. There's a difference between peace and paralysis. Peace sets you free. Paralysis holds you still. Peace brings lightness to your soul. Fear, on the other hand, lulls you into numbness and calls it safety. Have you ever stayed silent in a room where your truth was choking you? Have you ever smiled just to avoid the weight of confrontation? Have you ever stopped dreaming, not because you didn't want more, but because wanting more started to feel dangerous? That's not peace. That's fear convincing you to settle. And sometimes we settle not because we've stopped hoping, but because we've stopped believing we're worthy of more. We trade our voice for validation. We trade our boldness for belonging. We trade our growth for guarantees. But nothing truly beautiful comes from staying hidden. Your soul is not meant to live quietly in the corner of your own life. You are not created to simply endure. You are created to express, to expand, to exist fully. Real peace isn't silent. It speaks truth. Gently but firmly. It doesn't avoid discomfort. It walks through it with dignity. It doesn't numb your emotions. It honors them. If you feel a quiet unrest inside you, if there's a voice within that keeps whispering, this isn't it, please don't ignore it. That's your soul trying to wake you up. It's not trying to disrupt your life. It's trying to reclaim it. You owe it to yourself to question the silence, to ask, am I truly at peace? Or am I just afraid to feel again? Because sometimes the calm you've created is just a very quiet kind of chaos. We often believe that joy is something we must chase, that it lies somewhere far ahead after the success, after the approval, after the fear has vanished. But what if I told you that real joy isn't ahead of you, it's hiding beneath your fear? Fear is powerful. It wears many faces: fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough. And slowly, quietly, it builds walls around our hearts. It convinces us to stay small, to blend in, to choose what's safe. And for a while we believe it, because fear sounds like wisdom when it's dressed in logic. But here's what fear doesn't want you to know. It has never once led you to joy. It has led you to comfort, to predictability, to avoidance, but never to joy. Joy only arrives when you choose to do the thing that fear told you not to. When you stand on trembling legs and say, I'm doing this anyway, there is a part of you that has always longed to be seen, to be heard, to be fully, unapologetically alive. That part doesn't care about perfection. It only wants truth. And truth requires courage. Have you noticed how your heart races not only when you're in danger, but also when you're about to do something brave? That's not fear warning you to stop. That's your soul waking up. Because on the other side of that fear is freedom. And within that freedom is joy. Joy doesn't come from avoiding life's challenges. It comes from showing up for them. It comes from knowing you didn't let fear make the decisions. That even if you failed, you tried. That even if your voice shook, you spoke. That even if your hands trembled, you took the leap. Real joy lives in those quiet victories. The day you showed up for yourself after years of neglect. The moment you said no when you were expected to say yes. The time you walked away from what was safe and chose what was true. So many people are surviving lives that were never meant to hold their light. They follow the rules, check every box, do all the right things, and yet they feel empty. Because joy does not bloom where fear is in charge. You don't find joy by building a perfect life. You find it by choosing yourself in a world that tells you not to. By walking through your fears, not around them. Your fear might be loud, it might feel real, but so is your strength. And once you choose to listen to that quiet, powerful voice inside, the one that says, you were made for more, you'll realize that joy was never far away. It was just waiting for you to be brave enough to come home to it. So today, if you're standing at the edge between comfort and courage, between fear and freedom, take the step. Not because you're not afraid, but because you finally understand that fear doesn't deserve the driver's seat in your life. You were not made to just survive. You were made to live deeply, love boldly, and rise fully. Let your discomfort become your compass. Let your pain become your power. And above all, let your future self look back and say, thank you for not settling. Thank you for choosing growth. Because the life you dream of is already waiting for your yes.